Welcome back to CVM Live. It's now time for the major stories in detail. The opposition leader, Dr. Peter Phillips, Sunday night blasted Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton for refusing to conduct an inquiry into the crisis at the Cornwall Regional Hospital and said that the investigation should not be viewed as a witch hunt. CVM Live Joel Crossgill has this report.
Opposition leader Dr. Peter Phillips, speaking in the Brandon Hill division of St Andrew West Rural, lambasted Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton for his refusal to conduct an independent inquiry into the issues affecting the Cornwall Regional Hospital.
We have called for an inquiry into the situation at Cornwall Region. The minister said not having no inquiry. We are not asking for us, the PNP, to appoint the inquirers. We say it must be an independent inquiry.
Dr. Phillips toured the hospital last week with a team from the party, including the Shadow Minister of Health, Dr. Dayton Campbell, Western Westmorland's Member of Parliament, Dr. Wickham McNeil, and Party Chairman Fitz Jackson.
It cannot be a witch hunt to find out how many Jamaican nurses may have been affected by the situation at Cornwall Regional. It cannot be a witch hunt to find out whether their families and their children have been affected. It cannot be a witch hunt to find out what is wrong with the building. We need to know. Every day they tell us that it is all right and something else happened. People need the assurance.
Dr. Phillips was in the constituency to announce the official candidacy of Attorney Jennifer Howson.
The truth is, right throughout Jamaica, the People's National Party, the workers are mainly the women who give us service. They can't just work in a constituency day and night as area leader and canvasser. We want them taking their seat in the Parliament of Jamaica, and this is one such woman.
Joel Crossgill, CVM Live.
Well, thanks for that, Joel. Well, on to our story. Human rights activist Lloyd Aguilar is demanding that Prime Minister Andrew Holness address the Tivoli incursion victims in light of his calling for the United Kingdom to provide just and fair compensation to the Windrush generation. This time it's Khadija Thomas with this report.
Armed with placards and voicing their frustration, victims of the Tivoli incursion stood in the rain demanding justice, saying only 400 out of 2,500 persons were compensated for the damage they suffered during the incursion. Human rights activist Lloyd Aguilar says a letter was written to Prime Minister Andrew Holness and they are yet to receive a response.
What we are saying to the Prime Minister in order to resolve this matter is not only that he should meet with the people, but that he should appoint someone, an independent person, to investigate the whole process.
Troy Palmer relived the moments he endured in the incursion, saying he was one of the witnesses on the inquiry.
My house damaged, my bike mash up, burn up, my place mash up, everything, and them only have me like a run around. They just give me a run around every day. I spend more than 20,000 been using by going to taxi fare and bus fare alone. And now I have none.
For Marjorie Williams, May 2010 is the day she lost her two sons, 21-year-old Fabian Grant and a 17-year-old Fernando Grant.
The police came in my house and took them out and killed them. It's going 8 years now, we haven't heard nothing.
And Ian Barrett, now paralyzed, blames a police officer for his current state.
Box me in my face from this side and it affects my whole body. Because even like most time going up, I cannot keep my urine from that, even like that.
We asked this resident how much she wants in compensation.
Couple 100,000. They don't know. Them not going to give you everything.
Khadija Thomas, CVM Live.
There's been a changing of the guard in Northwest St. Anne, where Minister of Education Royal Reid announced his candidacy for the seat as former Member of Parliament and caretaker Othniel Lawrence steps down from his position. Here's Joel again with this report.
former MP for Northwest St. Anne, Othniel Lawrence, who had in 2014 threatened to sue party leader Andrew Holness and Dr. Horace Chang over his removal as caretaker candidate for the seat, has stepped aside.
I'm happy to know that this is a historic moment for the Jamaica Labour Party, in which over the years we have seen persons who have served, and at times people may think if they're forgotten. But I want to say that in Northwest St. Anne, I've served over a decade, and I'm happy to know that my successor and also the Jamaica Labour Party has recognized my input, and therefore today my family and I want to say thanks to the constituents and the hard-working team of Northwest St. Anne.
Mr. Lawrence has now pledged his support to Senator Rule Reid, Minister of Education, to take over his role.
My full support is behind Senator Rule Reid, and I'll be working in whatever capacity he feels I have the ability to ensure that Jamaica Labour Party will win Northwest St. Anne at the next election.
Senator Reid was fulsome in his praise of the performance of Mr. Lawrence while he was in office.
This truly is a humbling experience and moment, but a very proud moment equally for the Jamaica Labour Party and the Jamaican politics. As has been expressed, we have seen a very smooth transition displayed here this evening for the people of Northwest St. Anne. Again, I want to publicly thank our outgoing caretaker, former MP Minister Othniel Lawrence, for his maturity, for his willingness to engage me as a member of the team going forward. We want to publicly thank him for his service to the people of Northwest St. Anne and by extension the people of Jamaica as he served as Minister of State.
The MP for St. Anne Northwest is the PNP's Dr. Dayton Campbell, who is currently the opposition spokesperson on health, Joel Crosskill. CVM Live.
Lab 01 following closely behind the police service unit along the Bernard Lodge main road, heading to a crime scene.
We don't have any heart. There is no heart in so many of our people, and it is so sad. Such a beautiful country with so many heartless people.
Barbara McKay and other loved ones were already at the St. Catherine location. She's sick to the stomach by the mindset of some of her countrymen who continue to inflict pain on top of pain to an already hurting society. Her only uncle by her mom, 76 years old, left his Portmore home alone Thursday driving a Town Ace van. All he wanted was fresh grass to feed his goats, but he did not return home and searches for him were fruitless.
His cap was found somewhere else. His cap and a piece of iron was found, and there was blood.
There was enough evidence to support that someone had encountered a dangerous scenario, and they are nervous it could be him because he was known to cut grass in that general area.
If you want to take his vehicle, take it. But why do you have to kill him? And on top of it, you know, you burned him. We don't think. What is it that you're going to get from this? You leave a family grieving, mourning, heartbroken. How do we tell other relatives this is what happened in a country where we want to come back and live?
So far, the police have not been able to ascertain an identity, but will await the outcome of a post-mortem. Detectives assigned to the St. Catherine South Police Division have confirmed that skeletal remains of a human were found burnt amongst debris. Passers-by reportedly stumbled upon the remains and alerted the cops. The hat was found close enough to where the remains were spotted.
We need a closure because we need to do what we have to, because it's our family.
The Member of Parliament, Dr. Angela Brown-Burke, has been calling attention to a flare-up of violence in her constituency that has led to the deaths of residents.
The last check and the last information that I have would have been the official statistics from the police. And their statistics say to me that between January of this year and April 7th, 55 persons were killed in St. Andrew South, which is where we fall. In addition to that, 43 persons were actually shot. And what that means is that you could almost have doubled the number of persons who actually died.
She says upon comparison, these these rates are the highest in Jamaica for this quarter.
The truth is that we are where we are today in April 2018. We have communities that are aching, that are in pain, that are suffering, where persons can't go out to work as they would want to, where children cannot go out to school as they would want to, where the babies, it's just bad.
With these incidents still rampant, the Member of Parliament is demanding that immediate intervention be taken, similar to those in Mount Salem, St. James, Denham Town, and the St. Catherine North Division, to prevent the further spread of violence.
We need not just a state of emergency where people can come and scrape up our young people and carry them in, and less than 10% of them are going to be charged, and the others are going to be locked up for who knows how long, which, as we have been hearing, causes problems because some of them have lost their jobs, and some of them it causes hardship to the family. I think we also need a kind of social intervention that places like Mount Salem got, that places like Denham Town has got.
Brownberg says crime must be treated as a serious issue, regardless of where the incidents occur. Khadija Thomas, CVM.
A man is now dead following a confrontation with a licensed firearm holder in Woodlawn, Manchester on Saturday. Reports from the Mandeville police indicate they were called to the community by the licensed firearm holder, who reported that he had just arrived home when he saw 3 men breaking into his house. He allegedly confronted them and they opened gunfire at him. He returned the fire and the men ran. Police officers who responded and processed the scene found the deceased on an adjacent property with gunshot wounds. He was pronounced dead at hospital. He has been identified as Andrew Edgerton Ball, also known as Bombi, a steel worker of New Green in Manchester. The businessman later discovered that the house had been broken into and a cache and section of a fence was removed. Detectives assigned to the Major Investigation Division have arrested and charged another man in connection with the murder of Simone Campbell Collymore and taxi operator Winston Walters, committed on January 2, 2018. He has been identified as 21-year-old Shakila Edwards, otherwise called Indian, unemployed of Gavimead Portmore in St. Catherine. He was charged on Wednesday, April 4, for conspiracy to commit murder. Edwards was charged along with Omar Collymore, husband of Simone Campbell Collymore, and 3 other persons. They are to appear before the Home Circuit Court on Friday, May 18. A newly appointed president of the Insurance Association of Jamaica, Peter Levy, says we should be concerned about the low level of insurance penetration in Jamaica when compared to other countries in the region. He noted that about 25% of Jamaica's workforce has life insurance, a third health insurance, but only 10% are members of a registered pension plan.
We estimate 48,800 commercial and 24,500 residential properties are insured, and 310,000 motor vehicles. That 310,000 is less than 50% of the total number of registered vehicles, even though insurance on motor vehicles is mandated by law.
He added that during 2014 to 2016, Jamaica's insurance penetration stood at 4.4%, which is only half of the level of penetration in Barbados and the Bahamas.
Now, these low penetration levels expose property owners and breadwinners to risk of financial ruin. It exposes innocent road users to significant risk of injury or loss of property with no viable path to compensation.
He says residential properties are often only insured when a mortgage is in place. Once the loan is repaid, there is a large number of homeowners who opt out of continuing their insurance. The Customs Broker and Freight Forwarders Association of Jamaica has highlighted a number of concerns in the sector. Representatives spoke at their 52nd annual general meeting on Sunday, as CVM Live's Nicole Wilson reports.
The Customs Brokers and Freight Forwarders Association of Jamaica, CBFFAJ, is calling on the Jamaica Customs Agency to review temporary import procedures. These procedures, according to the president of the association, Mitzi Burt Green, are laborious. She is also calling for the standardization of customs operations.
We remain concerned as an association about the blatant inconsistencies in operations by Jamaica Customs in Kingston as distinct from Jamaica Customs in Montego Bay. Customs in both cities operate under different rules for certain processes, causing no end of surprises and frustrations for us.
In the meantime, Burt Green also took the opportunity to highlight the association's accomplishments. She says progress has been made in training and development, although the support from stakeholders is underwhelming.
Over the last 3 years, the CBFFAJ has invested significantly to increase the numbers and levels of training courses and workshops in support of our business output and efficiencies. However, as an executive, we are not seeing enough business owners participating in these training programs.
Bert Green also encouraged association members to deepen their knowledge of customs operations and procedures. She also told them to keep abreast with the changes in policies and procedures in the industry. Nicoy Wilson, CVM Live.
Transport and Mining Minister Robert Montague says the government is to aggressively pursue the development of Jamaica's bunkering industry. Minister Montague was addressing a function of the International Bunker Industry Association Caribbean Conference in Montego Bay recently. Here's Vaughn Thorpe with the story.
Jamaica could benefit from the generation of up to 900 job opportunities and increased economic activity of approximately $3 billion if the country grows its share of vessels passing through the Panama Canal and bunkering in Jamaica to 10%. This is coming from a 2012 Commonwealth Secretariat commissioned study Minister Montague revealed.
We are therefore aggressively pursuing strategies to realize the projected growth levels. Ladies and gentlemen, in Jamaica, we are open for business, and this minister will be aggressively pursuing the expansion of bunkering in Jamaica.
This, he said, will be done through the facilitation of investment and ensuring that the necessary administrative and regulatory framework are in place.
This is not only a desired outcome, but an explicit requirement under Jamaica's National Development Plan, which tempers the thrust for economic prosperity with the aim to sustain a healthy natural environment. This is also in keeping with the Balancing Act, to which the government is committed.
In the interim, the Maritime Authority of Jamaica, MAJ, the main regulator of shipping, has the mandate to ensure Jamaica complies with the regional and international regulations. Having had dialogue with the MAJ, Minister Montague indicated that he will be fast-tracking some critical legislation, one of which is the Maritime Pollution Bill. Montague was addressing the gala dinner of the International Bunker Industry Association IBIA Caribbean Conference in Montego Bay, St. James. Vaughn Thorpe.
A different environment for a divisional meeting, but residents were out in their numbers to give ear to their Member of Parliament for West Central St. Catherine, Dr. Christopher Tufton, at the Pointe Liste primary in the parish. Dr. Tufton says he can now address the issue of the Cornwall Regional Hospital on a political platform.
They have had issues with their air quality from 1999. Not 2 years ago, 1999. During that time, there have been so many ministers of health, including the current leader of the opposition, Dr. Peter Phillips. And therefore, he would have encountered the problem, know about the problem, had the opportunity to fix the problem, and did nothing about the problem.
He says the Jamaica Labour Party-led government now has to deal with the issue as the People's National Party makes demands.
And I said to myself, what hypocrisy in that kind of argument. So they want us to close down the hospital, the only type A hospital in that part of the country, where nearly 500,000 people between 4 parishes depend on it for services that no other hospital offers. And if we close it down, all it would mean is that people would die because they have nowhere to go.
Dr. Tufton says the government will deliver what he describes as a better healthcare facility.
One thing we have never done is take direction from the People's National Party, because they will lead us astray. And they are out there looking to get in, and we are here providing leadership that the country wants.
Khadija Thomas, CVM Live.
The Westmoreland police are investigating at least 2 crimes committed this morning. In one incident, the body of 43-year-old Christopher Reynolds from Bluefields in the parish was found with chop wounds around 10 o'clock along the roadway. In the other case, 3 men were digging a grave for a woman who was shot and killed recently in the Red Ground area when explosions were heard and 2 other men were seen with guns. The 3 grave diggers were shot. They were rushed to hospital where they were admitted. Live. Work is underway to retrofit several schools across the island to facilitate students with disabilities. Education Minister Senator Ruel Reid was pleased to see the recent upgrades at a high school in Spanish Down, St. Catherine, although he also shared in a sad moment at the institution. CVM Live's Vaughan Thorpe, has this report.
Education Minister Senator Ruel Reid is pleased to see several schools across the island retrofitted with lifts and ramps to improve access by persons with disabilities. On Friday, Minister Reid toured Eltham High School to see its upgraded facility.
I'm happy to see in this design that we're modernizing and taking all these particular needs in consideration, and this is very much aligned to our commitment to the Senate motion moved by Senator Paul Morris to make Labor Day 2018 a special project where we're going to put these kind of facilities right across our country, constituency by constituency.
Come September 2018, Eltham High School is also expected to open its new classroom block.
We're trying to get them fully off shift, so I'm looking forward to returning in short order to open these new facilities. And of course, we'll continue to work with them to make sure that the school has adequate furniture for the new school year, including the new facilities that have been just built.
Meanwhile, students and staff of Eltham High assembled on the school grounds on Friday in remembrance of Shanice Lewis, a mathematics teacher of the St. Catherine-based institution who passed away on April 10, 2018, after being admitted at the Spanish Town Hospital with stomach pains for 2 days. Senator Reid offered emotional support to Lewis's family and the school cohort.
When I heard the news, I immediately reached out to the school family, and I'm happy I was able to take time off out of my office to be here on the ground to commiserate, to be among the teachers, the students, and the parents. I got to meet the parent, the mother, father, members of the family, and her fiancé, and extended our condolences on behalf of the government and the Ministry of Education.
Described as a vibrant individual, Shanice Lewis was teaching at the Eltham High School for roughly 5 months. Vaughan Thorpe, CVM Live.
Well, here's Nicole Wilson again, this time with regional and international news.
In Barbados, the National Union of Public Workers has advised the workers of the Supreme Court complex to return home. This follows a meeting this morning on the steps of the institution. It came in the wake of Chief Justice Sir Marston Gibson's announcement last Friday that operations would resume at the complex starting today. Last week, a decision was made to close the court complex due to environmental concerns bedeviling the building. President of the union, Akani McDowell, told workers they should not feel bullied into reporting for work as they were empowered under the Health and Safety Act to stay off the job. In Trinidad and Tobago, Attorney General Faris Al-Rawi has defended the government's repatriation of 82 Venezuelans last Saturday. He says the Twin Island Republic's participation in international agreements does not automatically translate to domestic law. Al-Rawi says with comfort that all those taken back to Venezuela had volunteered to return home, having been so informed by Chief Immigration Officer Charmaine Gandhi Andrews. On the international scene, UK citizenship fees and language tests will be waived for Windrush generation and their families. This according to Home Secretary Amber Rudd. Here's an excerpt from her parliamentary address.
The Windrush generation to acquire the status that they deserve, British citizenship, quickly, at no cost and with proactive assistance through the process. First, I will waive the citizenship fee for anyone in the Windrush generation who wishes to apply for citizenship. This applies to those who have no current documentation and also to those who have it.
She also suggested that the citizenship offer would also apply to anyone from other Commonwealth nations who settled in the UK between 1948 and 19...
You are back with your News Authority CVM Live, our 90-minute news program. Prime Minister Andrew Holness and a Jamaican delegation were in the United Kingdom last week attending the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. Several issues came up during that visit, including immigration, Windrush, homosexuality and bilateral issues. And we are also pleased at CVM Live to be joined by the gentleman himself on Her Excellency the Queen's business, Mr. Ahmad, British High Commissioner. Is it right, Excellent?
It is, absolutely right. And good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir. We're going to begin with the Windrush generation. Now, we have an acknowledgement from both the British Prime Minister and the Home Secretary today, stating that the Windrush generation, persons like ourselves here from Jamaica who left in 1948 and were told that they could not stay on any longer, having not had documents, have made a significant contribution to the development of Britain's economy, Britain's culture, through taking up working class jobs in transportation, in factories, building up the British National Health Services. Can you tell us how you feel, especially when you hear the Home Secretary, Rod, say each case is painful to recount, but it must be even more painful for those persons who have suffered the pain of being told you're not a British citizen?
The fact that we're talking about this issue today shows how much we need to travel in terms of making sure that people really understand our history properly. It is inseparable. The Britain today and the contribution from the Commonwealth, they're part of the same whole. And the fact that we're still talking about division is in itself a story. I could be sitting here today actually being a victim of this, because my mother and father came to Britain as Commonwealth citizens in 1954, and I was born shortly thereafter in the same hospital that the Prince today was born in. Now, if they had not gone through the system and got their paperwork in order, we would be having this conversation about me. So for me, this is a personal issue as much as it is one of the community. The other thing, as a civil servant, the tendency is to turn all of this into process, forms and bureaucracy. These are human stories, each and every one of them. The pain is visible, the anxiety, and which is why I think what has now happened is that instead of this being a procedure that people have to jump through, the government has turned the thing around completely to say this is now a service so that people can get their legitimate documents in order. It's not even giving them an entitlement to citizenship. They are citizens of the United Kingdom. They simply haven't got a document to prove it.
But, High Commissioner, how do you compensate persons, though? And of course, this is in a context where MP Lamy described it as a shameful episode. How do you compensate people for the feeling of being lesser citizens? Because that's what Jamaicans tend to feel, Jamaicans discussing it locally, that there are different levels of citizenship in the UK, and that somehow Jamaicans living in the UK, as Ashley said earlier, building the society after World War II, feel like they're no longer citizens, lesser citizens. How do you compensate people for that?
I don't think any amount of money would compensate people for that sort of, for anxiety and that feeling of being not counted as being valuable. I think it is up to us as a community and as a government to redress that. And you see this in everyday life. When we have sporting heroes who have come from an Afro-Caribbean background, when we see people of Indian origin making a big contribution, people from South Africa and others, we celebrate those. And I think when something goes wrong, we need to step up and actually acknowledge where something has gone terribly, terribly wrong. Now, we can do things to redress it in terms of physical changes. But I think the emotional hurt will take a little bit longer to go.
High Commissioner, before we delve into the issue and the debate about compensation, do you feel that the acknowledgement and the apologies given to the Windrush generation and the descendants by the Prime Minister and by the Home Secretary are adequate?
It's the beginning of a process. It's the beginning of acknowledgement from the highest person in authority in government to say something that the government has been doing has gone wrong, terribly wrong for individuals. The intention was to do something quite different, which was to go after undocumented migrants. What has happened instead is that people who have every right to consider themselves British were in danger of being disenfranchised, and that is something that we will not see happen.
But it's a tied part and parcel in a way, isn't it, with Jamaicans and the Jamaican British citizens who are of Jamaican descent and Jamaicans living in Jamaica who are seeking visas to the UK. There's also some anxiety here as well because of, is it being driven by an environment, a political environment in the UK that is seemingly more xenophobic, seemingly less welcoming to foreigners?
The two are quite different. I mean, every country that has a visa regime has it for a reason. 86% of Jamaicans who apply for a visa in Jamaica at our High Commission, their visas are approved. So it's a very small percentage who don't, and some of those get them approved when they submit documentation that actually proves the basis of their application. So we're talking about an extremely small minority of people who actually fail to get a visa to go to the UK, which is why numbers are going up, which is why we have daily flights to Kingston and Montego Bay. The facts prove themselves.
Hi, Commissioner. Can you tell us two things in this one question? What was the intention of Parliament when the law was enacted in 1973, or put into motion in 1973, stating that persons could no longer come from the Commonwealth and take up residency without more in terms of registration and going through a more formal visa procedure? Secondly, can you tell us what Home Secretary Amber Rudd put in place today? There are 4 things that she presented to Parliament which would be some kind of redress and an effort to streamline the process for these British citizens to be granted their citizenship, their right.
I think 2 separate things have happened. The 1973 measure was an immigration control measure, and it was also to look at the fact that the gate was being opened up to the European Union in a much bigger way. So I think there was a sentiment at that time that we needed to have some measure of control over people who had half a right to come to Britain, or full rights to come to Britain, or no rights to come to Britain as countries left the colonial structure and became independent countries. I think the reason why we're facing the difficulties today is for a different reason, which really sort of got it to its peak in 2012, although it had its beginning in 2009, which was to ensure that employers, the providers of free health service and others, were verifying the status of individuals, whereas in the past nobody would ask you to prove your identity and nationality. Suddenly an ordinary person who had no intention to travel, for instance, would have to produce a piece of paper that says, I'm here in the UK as a legitimate resident or a citizen, now can you let me have this service? What this episode has proven is that the realization that people are entitled not to travel, or nobody can force you to have a passport, and the debate that's going on over here about ID cards, etc. But on the other side, even buying something on the internet, opening a bank account, doing the basic things today because of ID fraud, means that you need some way of proving who you are. These have come to a heady collision, and we have this situation that we're dealing with. Now, what has happened today is quite a big turnaround. It is for the government of the United Kingdom to say we are here to provide a service, not act as gatekeepers on this particular issue. So anybody who came to the UK pre-1973 simply has an automatic right for that to be converted into a British passport without going through the citizenship test or the English language proficiency. Their children are going to be treated in exactly the same way. Now, there are people in the grey area of who may have left just before, just after, they haven't been back for 20, 30 years. Those people are going to be considered again.
Returning residents.
Not just returning residents, people who have just...
To Jamaica.
Yes. But people, for whatever reason, did not... they left the UK beyond the 2 years that was regarded as being acceptable. And so each and every case will be entertained. The first answer will not be, sorry, don't comply with criteria A, B, and C. What they will do is to look at every individual case and say, well, do you have the basis for doing something? And not only fill in this form and go away, we will walk you through the processes, and if it is eligible, then it will be a service that is actually provided.
Sounds like a tremendously bureaucratic exercise, though, High Commission.
Well, documents are bureaucratic, but the process is being turned around, whereas that we will take people through what is actually necessary, and people who haven't even stepped up yet to say they have a right to reside in the UK or come back, we will assess those rather than stick to the rules now, which is to simply say, apply for a visa, because that's the only way you're going to come in.
One gets the sense that this episode is just maybe a small shot in a larger war then, in terms of the changing nature of the UK itself, where you'll have more immigrants into the UK and the changing racial profile of the country itself, and also ties into the politics of Brexit, etc. And of course now there's talk of the Commonwealth becoming more important. How does Jamaica and CARICOM fit into this new Britain going forward? How do you see that happening?
Well, right up front, if you take CARICOM and CARIFORM in its wider sense with trade, we've already signed an informal agreement that when we leave the European Union, we start on day one with existing privileges and access to markets intact, and then we develop from there. So we've gone out of our way to make sure that countries like Jamaica and the Caribbean as a whole does not sort of fall out of the system. Because whilst you're negotiating with the EU, the renewal of the Economic Partnership Agreement, etc., that's not a negotiation we'll be taking part in this time around, but we don't want to abandon what is an important place for us. And when you go back to the original proposition of Britain today is diverse. You know, there are 800,000 people from Jamaica and Jamaican descent who are living there. When we present our credentials to the world, when we bid for games, or when we appeal to the international community, we use that as our credentials as a country. The Brexit thing is important, but it's an assertion of the will of the people that we're putting into place. But that does not mean that somehow or other we are going to put up the shutters and become a real island-minded country. It actually means that we have to live up to our other order from the government, which has become Global Britain, to reach out to all parts of the world, to say, talk to us, deal with us, travel, and engage.
High Commissioner, a diverse Britain, an internationally appealing Britain now. The visit, this Commonwealth, heads of government visit involving the leadership of CARICOM, including our very own Prime Minister, was planned way before this Windrush excitement. Can you tell us the significance of it and the impact that it will have on Jamaica and the impact of our very own Prime Minister?
Sure. I think before your Prime Minister left, we had a send-off reception here with the delegation, and we were able to say a few things. Firstly, that this remains a voluntary association of nations. It came out of its colonial history, but really the agenda is set by members of the Commonwealth. And Jamaica itself was given a very high profile, the only Caribbean country that had a bilateral pre-planned with Prime Minister May, the only foreign Prime Minister invited to speak in the combined forum where Bill Gates and Theresa May spoke. Yes. The youth minister who was speaking to you just a few minutes ago, the prominent role that Jamaicans are playing in that setup. Your foreign minister was given her own slot in the business forum. Yes. You know, Jamaica has been shown to be in a leadership position. And even when the difficulties came, because, you know, you can't just be a fair weather friend. I think Prime Minister Andrew Holness was absolutely correct in the way he said what he said. He expressed the grievance and the hurt that the people of Jamaica would have felt, but equally he said he was willing to take on trust the commitment that our government had made as to how we were going to put it right. And even today, he was retweeting the statement by our Home Secretary Amber Rudd saying, here it is. And I think that my counterparts, the Caribbean High Commissioners, also played a big role in making sure that the voice of the people that they interact with on a consular basis got through.
But the economic impact and the economic advocacy that will favour Jamaica, which we're sure was made by the Prime Minister and the delegation. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, the Prime Minister actually of Jamaica addressed a huge group of Jamaicans in a giant church hall. People had to queue for miles to get in there. And I watched it on Facebook Live as it was happening here in real time. And the Prime Minister was saying what I've been saying over here as well. If you've got 800,000 people of Jamaican origin there, we've got 200,000 Britons who come and go, we've got small-sized businesses wanting to work with each other, and the whole expo that you saw over here, companies like the big companies here are actually reaching out to the smaller Jamaican companies and saying, get your products out there, we will even help you ship them and consolidate them and get them to markets like the UK. We're a natural springboard, and whatever arrangement we come to after Brexit, I think that access to the bigger marketplace via the United Kingdom will remain.
Hi, Commissioner, as we close very quickly, are you happy, is the British government happy with the fact that the Prime Minister has acknowledged that globally the view on homosexuality is evolving, that persons' personal decisions are their own, so much so that he has countered what was said by former Prime Minister Bruce Golding when he said, "Not in my cabinet"?
Prime Minister Theresa May actually apologized for the colonial legacy, because many of the laws, including the laws here, are a legacy of that unchanged. What I heard Prime Minister Holness say was correct. He said, let the process of democracy work its way through, let the dialogue happen. And I participated in some discussions here with in the University of the West Indies and others. There are healthy debates going on between people who have a particular view, either from a religious point of view or others. It's not for me as a foreigner to say this is the pace at which Jamaica needs to move, but it's a universal human right that we passionately believe in.
Thank you, High Commissioner. Very well put. And we've just heard from the British High Commissioner.